this is my review of My Hero Academia 2 Heroes. Okay, so this is what I've been hyping up on my Twitter for just a little bit. So if you guys haven't been following me on Twitter, which you definitely should, you would know that I have been building up my reviews of My Hero Academia to this, My Hero Academia 2 Heroes. It's upside down. But yeah, I got the Blu-ray DVD copy of it, and I reviewed it. Well, I'm going to. And if you got the Blu-ray DVD copy like I did, then you get this commemorative little button with a picture of Deku on it. So, yeah. But anyway, this movie is very interesting. I don't believe it has any real bearing on the overall plot of the anime, but it is an interesting little side story, I guess. So, it starts off by establishing our relationship between All Might and David Shield. So, All Might and David Shield used to work together, as it has been stated in the prequel episode, which I reviewed last week, about how they used to work together as hero and sidekick back when they were both students in college, back when All Might was studying abroad in California. So, the two used to work together, which would explain why the two are able to communicate so fluently despite the language barrier. Although to be fair, that explanation is kind of wishy-washed away, because Deku is able to speak perfect English despite being a Japanese born-bred citizen, and likely would have no real reason to learn English at all. But it's entirely possible he picked it up from, I don't know, the internet or something. But anyway, it's established that All Might first made his debut as the symbol of peace when he fought some villains that were operating out of California, specifically the city of Los Angeles, which would explain why the villains are named the LA villains. They're not exactly important at all. They're just kind of the first villains that All Might stops on his road to become a hero and become the symbol of peace. And we also get to see the All-Mobile, a vehicle that is only ever used once in this film and is never seen again. It's this, I guess the best explanation is that it's this red hot rod style car with a detachable drone that enables it to be picked up and flown around as well as driven, and the two can separate. So we mainly just see a fight between the two villains and All Might in this first couple of minutes of the movie. And this first opening scene does establish that there are indeed American-based superheroes. We knew that 8% of the population had a quirk, at least at some point in their life, unless they were stolen by All for One, but semantics. But we actually get to see that there are indeed American-based superheroes operating out of California at the very least. So that was a nice little surprise to see. And it's revealed that this entire first scene is actually a flashback by All Might, who was just remembering his early days as a hero, and is obviously excited to see his friend David again. So he's eventually pulled out of his flashback by Deku, who is excitably pointing at Eye Island and pointing out just how excited he is. And All Might points out that the main reason he invited Deku is because they do share something a little bit thicker than blood, which is that they actually share a connection with One for All. So, and meanwhile, they've arrived at the airport and are going through customs. And during this, we also hear a bit of an abbreviated backstory for the first couple of seasons, and including shots from the anime and scenes from the anime that are in this film to establish where this takes place in the timeline and what's going on. So it's not important if you didn't watch the anime, but if you didn't watch the anime, it's there to explain what happened up to this point. If you did watch the anime, you don't need to watch this part. You can skip through that scene. But anyway, as Deku and All Might are going through customs, All Might decides to test Deku's trivia about what's going on with the island and what actually happens there. And Deku points out that it's actually a city created entirely by scientists, and that they're able to use their quirks freely, and that they've it's basically the most advanced place on the planet. Case in point, when they actually get into the place, it's most of the technology there is indistinguishable from magic, for lack of a better word. It's essentially that everything there is so advanced that that's essentially magic at that point. Because the whole thing about technology is that if it advances to the point it's indistinguishable from magic. Case in point, smartphones. Back in the day, they used to be these giant blocks, but now they fit in your pocket and are basically portable computers. Case in point, magic. But it's at this point as it's revealed that All Might has to stay in his muscle form the entire time because he needs to keep up appearances. And while that isn't good for his body, he wants to try and keep his image as the symbol of peace alive and well. And also points out to Deku that he can't exactly tell David about what's going on with his quirk because David is one of the few people who actually doesn't know. So, well, one of the many people who doesn't know, but one of All Might's few close friends who actually doesn't know. At which point, Melissa bounces up on a technologically advanced pogo stick she invented, and she and All Might have a bit of a reunion. And Deku's kind of just looking on in confusion because he believes that she is indeed the lifelong friend that All Might met, and is immediately confused because she's a bit too young to be a friend of All Might. But then All Might clears it up, and then it starts clicking for Deku. And at which point Melissa finally greets Deku for the first time, and the two have their first interaction. And Deku is a bit shy, mostly because a beautiful girl is checking him out, more or less. And it's mostly because she's analyzing his costume and seeing some of the injuries that he sustains throughout his long journey as a student at UA. So, yeah, it's established that she started to take an interest in Deku, more specifically his promise as a hero. And she begins to realize that Deku is a student of All Might, and realizes that the two kind of have a bit of a closer relationship, mainly from Deku talking. So the two are escorted by Melissa to David's lab, where the two have a reunion, mainly because David had no idea All Might was going to be there, and the two have a bit of a reunion, but then realizes that All Might is starting to reach his limit with his quirk, and has Deku and Melissa leave the room, and also his assistant who was there. He doesn't really have a name. He's not really an important character. He's kind of a minor character in the story, but he's not. He's there. He's there. He plays a minor important role later, but he's not really important as a whole. So, at which point, All Might finally collapses from exhaustion, and David starts running some tests on him, and finds out that All Might's quirk levels have actually been dwindling, and becomes concerned for his friend. And at which point, All Might heads over to the gala, which is being held at Eye Island, the Eye Expo. So, meanwhile, while all of that is happening, Melissa and Deku are heading around town, and Melissa is showing Deku all the sights, mainly some quirk amplification related stuff that's designed to help heroes with support items and things like that. And while they're doing that, they actually run into Araraka, Jiro, and Yaoyorozu, and while the three are kind of a little bit concerned that Deku is spending time with a beautiful girl, mainly Araraka, because of her aforementioned crush on Deku. They quickly clear up the misunderstanding, and Melissa easily diffuses the situation by asking the girls to a cafe and bringing Deku along, and Deku is kind of just relieved at the fact that she was able to diffuse the situation. At which point, Kaminari and Mineta are revealed to be working at the cafe where they go to get coffee, and it's slowly revealed through all the other students that each of the characters from Class 1A are in fact there, for varying reasons. For example, Bakugo is there because he was rewarded a trip there due to his promise in the sports festival. Due to the fact that he came in first, he got a free trip to Eye Island. apparently. And Kaminari was just there to keep Bakugo company, mostly. And it's also, and Ida's there mainly because he has a promise, because he's comes from a long line of superheroes, so obviously he should be there. And and then Uraraka and Jiro were Yaoyorozu's +2, and the other girls are there, but they're just not allowed at the expo because they didn't get tickets. So, yeah, for varying reasons, everybody's there. Also, so mainly the people that are mainly involved with the plot are Uraraka, Yaoyorozu, Jiro, Kaminari, Mineta. I need my other hand. Bakugo, Kirishima, Ida, and Todoroki. So of those, so 9 different students are involved in the plot, and they all contribute differently. So after getting to know all of his friends, and after seeing Deku in action, mainly because he found out that half of the guys were hanging out at this, I don't know, I guess for lack of a better term, it's this festival thing. It's like this, they have to defeat all the mock villains in a certain, as quickly as they can. And Deku immediately shows up and, against his better judgment, is pushed into actually going and participating in that, and easily defeats all the mock villains in mostly record time. So it's kind of amazing, but it's also prompts Melissa to become a bit more concerned for Deku, because she's starting to realize that he's kind of holding himself back a little bit, which he is, because it's established at this point that he can't fully control his quirk or he'll hurt himself really bad, hence the scars on his hand. But after meeting all of his friends, she and Deku head back to her dorm room, and she reveals that she is indeed quirkless. So she doesn't have a quirk, and even though her father is established to have a quirk, at least in the comics, or manga, I guess. Not a useful quirk, mind you. It mostly just increases his dexterity in his hands, so he can work a bit more efficiently using his fingers. That's mainly what his quirk does, so it's kind of useless on its own. Hence why he's a sidekick and not a superhero, and why he went into the inventing profession of things side of things for superheroes. So it's not necessarily that he's not able to be a hero. He knows he's not able to be a hero, but he also realizes his best contribution is to help other heroes. So he decided to become a sidekick, hence why he's an inventor instead of going out on the front lines punching bad guys. And Deku, that's a long-winded way to say that Melissa doesn't have a quirk, which Deku immediately sympathizes with, considering the fact that he didn't have a quirk initially. At which point, Melissa pulls out her greatest invention, Full Gauntlet, which is designed to help, I guess, for lack of a better word, it's designed to limit the amount of stress that Deku's quirk causes. Or more specifically, it's designed to help limit the effects of One For All's stress on a body for people who aren't able to handle it, like Deku. And after accepting the gift from Melissa, Deku immediately gets a call from Ida, who is trying to get everybody together, mainly because he set a deadline for them to all show up at the iExpo, and nobody has yet. Well, some of the guys have already, but most of the girls haven't shown up at all. So Deku and Melissa immediately get changed and rush over there, and the rest of the girls follow suit, only to discover that Wolfram and his crew, Wolfram being the main antagonist of the film, Wolfram and his crew have been working in secret the entire time to actually infiltrate the iExpo, and have immediately gone to work using the security system to take the entire island hostage and restrain all the heroes in the iExpo, thereby completely restraining all of the heroes and eliminating any threat they have, before escorting David and his assistant up to the top floor, which it is later revealed that the tower is 200 stories high, which is a massive structure, by the way. But the students immediately realize something's wrong when the elevator stops working, and go to investigate, only to discover that Wolfram has indeed finally taken over the entire island, and realize immediately that something is wrong, and are unable, and realizing that All Might is a bit in danger, and realizing they need to help him, they begin to formulate a plan. Melissa, realizing that the security system is on the top floor, and realizing that all the other kids are able to use their quirks to quite an effective degree, mainly because they're hero students and they're training to become professional heroes. The Deku and Melissa come up with a plan to get Melissa to the top floor so she can recontrol the security system so they can actually free the island from Wolfram and his crew, and immediately set out going onto this plan. Meanwhile, Bakugo and Kaminari are milling around and don't find out about this till much later. But it immediately comes to a head at the 80th floor when they realize that they've been spotted by the villains and are trying to halt their progress. And while they have closed off routes to the top floor, Mineta decides to take the really stupid idea of opening one of the secured doors, thus alerting the villains to where they are, and they send 2 villains after them. So the group hides in a nearby bush because they're inside a testing room where there's a giant garden, and it's designed to test the various effects of quirks on various plants. And so TLDR, they hide in a bush because there's a garden in the building. And while they are able to keep themselves hidden, Kaminari and Bakugo, who got hopelessly lost and somehow wound up on the 80th floor trying to get to the gala, actually wind up on the 80th floor as the villains are looking around and get spotted. And the villains immediately pick a fight with the 2 kids, only for Todoroki to get involved and immediately help shut them down. And the 3 students opt to finding out what exactly is going on after Todoroki told them. The 3 students actually hold off the villains while the rest of the group tries to scale the rest of the facility. And they realize that in order to get further onward, they realize that they need somebody small to actually access a maintenance panel so that they can actually get to a ladder that would take them up the rest of the way so they can actually continue scaling the building. At which point, Mineta reluctantly agrees to volunteer after being told he'll have a giant harem, because it's Mineta, of course it will. And he succeeds in getting them up the rest of the way. But at this point, the villains have realized that the group is indeed from UA's hero course, and have immediately started sending security drones after them. And they quickly realize that the drones are immune to electricity because Kaminari tries to use his quirk on them and it doesn't work, and he winds up going to dum-dum mode. So they quickly realize that the only way forward is to fight through the security system, and immediately Deku starts using his quirk to take down some of the security drones, and then they grab Kaminari and keep going, but are immediately stopped by another group, and this one is a bit more overwhelming, and they're unable to actually get past the security drones. So Uraraka, Melissa, and Deku are sent on their merry way to try and get them to the rest of the way to the top, while the rest of the students hold them off. But the rest of the students are quickly reaching the limits on their quirks and are unable to actually finish the job, and are quickly defeated and restrained by the security system. And Uraraka uses her quirk to lift Deku and Melissa up the rest of the way, but she herself is almost captured by the security system because she can't use her quirk. At which point Todoroki, Bakugo, and Kaminari, who up to this point had been dealing with the villains, finally have defeated the villains and make their way up the rest of the tower to regroup with the rest of the team, and save Uraraka at the last minute. And realizing that Melissa and Deku are in danger because one of the fans kicked on and blew them away, Todoroki is forced to use his fire, which he isn't entirely comfortable with at this point in the story, but he is slowly coming to terms with the fact that that is part of his personality, and that is part of what his quirk is. So he has Bakugo destroy one of the fans so that he can use his quirk to blow hot air at them, so that way they can be pushed safely to the security door on the top floor. And this works. And and Melissa and Deku are able to finally get to the top floor after a run-in with a guy who's basically Edward Scissorhands. He's able to turn his forearms into swords. And with some intervention from Melissa, Deku is almost finished, but not quite, and he's able to climb back into the building after getting knocked out of a hole in the wall, and immediately finishes off the villain before climbing into the vault, where it's revealed that David actually was planning this the whole time, and he was actually the mastermind behind everything, sort of. So David actually invented a device that was intended to increase All Might's abilities, or really anybody who had a quirk, and it was designed to amplify their quirk's abilities. And it was actually shut down because people feared that if it was mass produced, villains would get a hold on them, and then the crime rate would be at an all-time high. And they were kind of right, because it is a pretty dangerous weapon to have lying around. Although, to be fair, David's intentions were good. He did do some bad things because he wanted to try and help All Might, but he did do them with the best of intentions. Sure, he kind of let some dangerous villains into the facility, and he did kind of have to pay them off, but he had good intentions. Not the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So David is kind of right, but also kind of wrong, because he did hire some villains. Although, after Melissa says something to him, he realizes that the villains might not have been entirely truthful, because the plan was they were intended to be actors. They weren't actually supposed to be real villains. But Wolfram lied to David and told them that they were indeed actors, and then it's revealed that they are indeed actually villains, and that it's revealed, at least to David, it is revealed to him that they were actually villains. And then when Deku tries to fight back, Wolfram immediately uses his quirk, which enables him to control metal, and he pins Deku to a wall, and then attacks David and his assistant, and steals the quirk amplification device for himself, so he can, and then kidnaps David and brings him to the roof. But then when Melissa tries to fight back, Wolfram almost kills her. But then Deku springs into action at the last minute, able to fully release himself using his quirk, and then tries to fight Wolfram. But Wolfram, being able to manipulate metal in a metal structure, which makes him basically a god tier threat, Deku is unable to keep up with him, and Melissa is unable to actually catch Wolfram before he escapes. But during that time, Melissa is able to free the security system with a brief nod from Deku, and they are able to bring the security system back into full swing and back under Ally control. But Deku gives chase after Wolfram and is unable to catch him. But thanks to the efforts of Melissa, All Might is actually able to get free and does destroy the plane that David was being escorted out of the islands on, and actually saves David. And then it's revealed that Wolfram wasn't quite dead, and actually used the quirk amplification device on himself to make himself unstoppable, and then creates a giant monster-ish thing out of all the different pieces of the structure, so that turns the entire roof of the tower into a giant weapon for himself. And with David's shield ensnared in the center of it. And All Might is unable to hold his own, and Deku is trying to help, but then all the other students come in, and having been freed by the security system because they let him go because it's now under control of the good guys again, and help All Might fight off the villain. And All Might, being moved by the students' efforts, finally gets a second wind, because he had to maintain his muscle form this entire time so that the villains didn't notice and get suspicious and realize that he indeed was reaching his limit. But Wolfram kind of already knew, and while he is able to And while All Might is able to get close to land a punch against Wolfram, Wolfram was revealed to have a second quirk that he got from All for One, and it's revealed that All for One was actually responsible for the entire events of My Hero Academia 2 Heroes. So it's revealed that the entire Eye Island incident was All for One's doing, and that he actually gave Wolfram a second quirk that would give him super strength, and that the quirk amplification device actually caused him to become a lot stronger and be on level with All Might. And All Might is completely unprepared for this and is unable to and is sent reeling from this and is then knocked to the floor by Wolfram's giant metal monster thing. And Deku realizing that All Might is at his limit gives him a much needed pep talk, and the two unite once more to actually try and fight off the enemy, and they do. And while the other students are able to hold their own against the giant metal construct that Wolfram has created for himself, he is unable to hold his own against twin users of One for All, and is easily defeated by the two of them. At which point, David realizes the error of his ways in that one moment where he sees Deku leap into action, and realizes that Deku is going to be the next All Might, and says as much to All Might when he's finally regains consciousness, because David has a bullet in his shoulder. It's established he got shot by Wolfram, so he's kind of losing blood, and All Might is able to help him. Meanwhile, Deku and Melissa let the rest of the group know that he's okay and that All Might and David are okay as well. And David gives one foul speech before the film cuts to black about how he realized that he was so focused on the past that he didn't realize that the future was right in front of him. Basically, he didn't realize that the future was right in front of him and got so stuck in the past that he didn't realize that he was missing what was actually happening in front of him. So he didn't realize that Melissa was trying to be the next David Shield and that Deku was trying to become the next All Might. And he completely missed that fact. But with Wolfram defeated, Class 1A is finally able to enjoy their time at the expo, and then as the credits roll, we see one last moment with David and his daughter, and the two. And while it's not entirely clear what they said because there's no sound in the final scene, it is revealed that she forgives him for what he's done, and that he is trying to make up for it now. So, yeah, that's the end of Two Heroes. It's a good film. I enjoyed it. I can definitely see why people recommended it to me. I mean, my review probably didn't do it much justice because I kind of stuttered and ummed and ahed a little bit, but yeah, to simplify things, this movie's great. Pick it up if you haven't already. It's a great little film, and while we don't see much of it outside of the film, we do see some pretty cool quirk-related devices, and we also see some pretty cool concepts for heroes that we probably will never see again, but are indeed in the film. And it's revealed and it is nice to know that there are other villains set here in the US of A that are trying to help fight the good fight. And it was also refreshing to see a little bit of backstory to All Might and how he wound up becoming the symbol of peace, which I'm assuming is what was the film's main intention, while at the same time establishing that there is indeed villains who do have more than one quirk and are able to control it, and that not everybody who has more than two quirks are indeed going to become Nomus. So this film does establish that that All for One is able to create people who are able to handle more than one quirk. So it's clear that we're going to be seeing more villains like that going forward. Specifically All for One himself, because he's kind of the guy who's gathering all these quirks to begin with. So I can imagine he has quite a few under his belt. So yeah, this film was good. It was a cute little side story. I liked it, and I definitely liked the relationship between Melissa and Deku. Which was the main heart of the film, and I did like seeing all the students trying to work together around the fact that they can't actually use their quirks to fight villains, by the way. in order to save the day. And that was quite an interesting little concept. And I did like the twist at the end that David was intending to try and did have good intentions, and that he did hire the villains, but it was for the best of intentions. And then him finding out that he kind of screwed up at the end and having to pay for his actions. That was a really nice little side of the film that I liked. So it's clear that it's apparent in the film that David was trying to help All Might out by any means necessary. And while he didn't really do the most moral of things, he did do what he succeeded to do, which was get his quirk amplification device back in the hands of himself, so that he could give it to All Might. And while it was destroyed, I think he did realize that his quirk amplification device might be a bit too dangerous. And all the people who lobbied against him to have it locked up probably had the right idea. So yeah, this film was great. Pick it up if you enjoy My Hero Academia, or just pick it up if you like good anime movies in general, or just pick it up if you like a good movie. It's a nice little watch. It's a nice little side story. I liked the story of the film. I thought it was great. I think you guys will find it great if you like My Hero Academia. But it is a pretty good film, and I would definitely recommend it. But anyway, if you guys did indeed watch My Hero Academia 2 Heroes and have somehow made it to the end of all of my ramblings, then what did you guys think? Let's get a discussion in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also, check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month, and it really helps me out, so I would definitely appreciate if you did that. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. I don't know, my outro. I'm tired. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!